in the state of Connecticut. Senator Boucher, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Max.
So first, let me start it this way. Do you think that Connecticut's roads and bridges and public transit need a reboot? Do they need a facelift, if you will?
Absolutely, and everybody agrees with that. But some of us maintain that we have the funds already to be able to do that. You just mentioned that tolls is a four-letter word.
It is.
Well, to many of the folks in Fairfield County, they see it as a three-letter word, tax. T-A-X, rather than just a fee, because the fee that they're paying already is the gas tax.
What makes you think there's enough money existing currently with current revenue?
Well, first of all, a lot of the money is being used for administrative costs, which we are in Connecticut anywhere between 6 to 9 times greater than any other state when it comes to the administrative costs per mile. So we do have also a bonding capacity that should be utilized just for roads instead of many other things, because after all, those are long-term costs.
But if you're only going to borrow that money, and you just mentioned the bonding cap, right? Like the state has a set limit how much you can borrow every year. Doesn't that just crowd out everything else? Doesn't that mean you can't pay for schools, you can't pay for parks and all that other stuff that people think is really important?
Well, not at all, because we put forward a plan for a number of years that showed that if you concentrate on the essentials, like school buildings, for example, but there are a lot of other discretionary, over $200 million worth of discretionary that's been used for all manners of things that have nothing to do with the core function of government.
If you're going to borrow the money, though, that's only on me and you. That's only on the people who are already living in Connecticut. We're going to have to pay that back in income tax, all the interest and the debt on those.
Sure.
You're not collecting money from anybody else. So doesn't that kind of create an argument for another kind of revenue stream?
You know, it really doesn't, because in Connecticut, we had tolls when we had no state income tax. Now we have a state income tax, which is the bulk of the revenues that the state has. And by the way, its gas tax is actually coming in higher than it was before. We have a percentage tax that no other state has.
But it's still going down. The gas tax has still been going down over the years.
Well, no, if you look at the revenues, we actually are collecting more every year. We're collecting more in income tax. We're collecting more in almost all of our taxes, which is interesting because we're also losing ground because we're losing individuals. The last thing that the real estate market tells us is that they don't want an additional cost that they have to compete against in their neighboring states. Already, it costs too much to live here.
But every other state's already competing on this. Maine, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, they already have tolls. So they're already competing. Aren't we the one then providing a free ride?
No, that's not true, because guess what? Those states do not have a car property tax. Every resident in Connecticut has to pay just
so that's a local tax, though. I mean, that goes to your local city or town.
Well, that's part of the cost of Connecticut and costing too much. Our income tax, by the way, has no deductibles. All of our neighboring states, you can deduct things off of that. So in essence, our income tax is actually higher. We have many other taxes that other states don't have.
Let me ask you about some of the politics of this. Republicans did not do well 2 weeks ago here in the state. And we know that the Democrats are always going to be the ones to put in tolls. We are never going to hear that from Republicans, at least in the coming years.
Well, there are those that do believe in such.
Sure, but then what message did the voters send when it comes to transportation and when it comes to tolls, you think?
Well, I don't think that this election result was based at all on tolls and any other politics, in fact.
Well, we heard Ned Lamont talking about it, though. Ned Lamont was not shy to talk about truck tolls.
He certainly did, but at least for what I've experienced is that there was a decided change in voter registration. Yep. There was a decided change in the motivation behind it, and there was a huge backlash on national politics that overwhelmed all the other issues we were talking about. I felt it, I heard it, it was palpable.
What do you think happens to the state's economy? What do you think happens to the state's population growth if tolls are put in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, real estate agents sell our state. They sell our towns. And they tell us this is just another real stake in the heart of their business, for sure. They don't feel that this is going to help them at all, particularly in the many Fairfield towns that are the ones that really provide the vast amount of the tax revenues, that it's going to be a dampening effect for them because they're going to calculate that as their daily commute.
Do you think that that outweighs the benefit of getting maybe faster roads, maybe faster trains? We hear so much about Metro North getting faster. Do you think that that frustration outweighs the benefit?
Well, if in fact you gain the kind of revenues you're talking about, I'm still dubious about that. Remember, it's going to cost $372 million to put them in place. If they're only going to toll trucks, they're going to fall short, because the best estimate is that you're going to gain $300 million, and it's going to cost you $372 million to put them in. So again, are you really going to get the revenues that you're seeking by doing this? And not to mention that supposedly 30% are out-of-staters.
Right.
Okay, how many are going to divert away from if every single roadway in Connecticut? So who's going to really feel the brunt of it? It's our local residents themselves, especially those that have to cross the line to go to work.
Senator Boucher, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, as always.
Thank you again, and we'll be right back.